Today I want to talk about something fun. Let's talk about eco-fascism. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. This was a video that was originally meant to be like a part 2 or like a sequel, what to call it, for the eco-ableism video, because these two things, although not exactly the same thing, but it taps into a similar mindset and it taps into what we as individuals can improve of, especially when we speak, and there's just tons of things here. But in the meantime, a lot of stuff has happened in the world, and I feel like it would be irresponsible for me to continue my channel and continue my social platforms without also speaking about these issues. So although today's video is going to be about eco-fascism, there's a lot of this that actually taps into what we, especially as white consumers, can do in terms of changing the way that we speak, changing the people we listen to. But I'm going to leave tons of links in the description as well to great resources, great places to get more information and to understand more about this, and also to influencers, activists, and people that are genuinely worth listening to. So it's like you don't have to get all of this information from your basic white girl. And there are so many amazing advocates out there that you can learn from. Just really wanted to put that out there, and also want to just acknowledge that this is something that affects every one of us. And even though I'm located in Denmark, discrimination and racism also happens here, and it is something that we need to take a serious stance on. I've been talking about it on Instagram for days and days and days at this point. This was actually meant originally to be a Patreon post, which is why the post is already up on Patreon. But I thought, given the current political climate, that it would be good to also talk about this on YouTube, simply so that this has some more reach. So that's where we're at. I am going to talk about eco-fascism right now, and there's a very good reason for that. This is something I think, if you are interested in sustainability or in environmentalism, or if you are part of environmentalist and sustainability groups, this is something you should be deeply aware of. Not necessarily fascism per se, I mean also fascism per se, but specifically eco-fascism. Fascism is a set of values or a political system in which the authorities or a government are defined by a dictatorial power, and they are defined by suppression of the opposition and a strong regimentation towards nationality and the history of a certain country. Historically, fascism is often associated with Nazi Germany, with Mussolini in Italy, we have Franco in Spain, and Perón in Argentina. But where exactly does the eco come in? Eco-fascism is a theoretical model or a set of values where the government or an authority can suppress the individuals of a certain population into sacrificing their own interests to serve a collective good, or a collective natural organic good, or the natural order of the world. Do you see why this could be bad? It's a term that has been used many times also in fiction to describe how a regime or a government can resort to fascism and fascist ideas in order to solve environmental issues. One of the things that makes this very yikes is that in eco-fascism, multicultural societies and multicultural gatherings of people and demographics, and especially people of color, are directly related to or directly responsible for the natural and too modern and over-industrialized world. And by removing these people, you will also automatically resolve the environmental issues. However, this is not at all a new notion. The official motto for Nazi Germany was race and soil, which is related to the notion that a certain group of people belong in a certain place, and if they move out of that certain place, that becomes unnatural. So any kind of immigration becomes unnatural and is something that does not benefit but is detrimental to nature. But is any of this relevant today? I think by the intro you can sort of gather, and if you've spent a hot second looking outside your window, you will also know that this is in fact very relevant today. As climate change and environmental issues are becoming more and more pressing matters, individuals, governments, and political parties are going to use those issues as an excuse to suppress people of color and minority groups. And the correlation between people of color, refugees and immigrants, and environmental issues has two main intentions. The first one is to strengthen laws regarding immigrants and make it harder for people to come into a certain country. The other intention is slightly more genocidal. Have you ever heard someone say during a, I don't know, global pandemic or a natural catastrophe that it's also a good thing, kind of, because we're overpopulated. So when stuff like this happens and a lot of people die, it's also going to benefit the ones that does not, because we are overpopulated. Yeah, this is a very, very common mindset, and it taps perfectly into ecofascism. It's a slippery slope. The logic here is based on the presumed knowledge that overpopulation can be solved by welcoming civilian casualties, which it inherently cannot. And I'm going to come back to that and explain that tons later. But it's not just any overpopulation. This is something that is generally said more often when the casualties are people of color, people from Asia, people that are immigrants and refugees. Then these people's deaths will become a positive thing for the people that are living, because less people equals less pollution. Right? Now, I am sure there are tons of experiences of life and experiences with this sort of thing. And for the most part, I'm just going to be talking about things I have heard and what I have read and what I have seen. And then again, I will leave links to resources down below if you want to educate yourself further, which I definitely think that you should. But simply for the purpose of keeping this video slightly organized and to the point, I am going for the most part to be talking about this from my own point of view. This is going to be my experience of how people can dive into an eco-fascist mindset or a discriminatory mindset without even knowing it, and that's on white supremacy, because racism is learned behavior. Let's take a kind of current example, because COVID-19 is just right there, and that has been a petri dish for eco-fascism. Is that even like how to use that metaphor? I don't know, but I have heard during this global pandemic, both in real life and online, people I care about, people I look up to, family members, friends, and generally role models talking about how, because China has so many people, it's been a good thing that some of those people died. And as we all know, overpopulation equals climate change. But there is something intensely xenophobic about this way of looking at it. Xenophobic being the fear of the other, fear of the foreign. And this is definitely something that a lot of people of color and a lot of people from Asia have been experiencing firsthand. A Danish comedian wrote out just when lockdown began in Denmark that she wanted to punch a Chinese person in the face because she was being forced to stay inside and stay at home rather than going out. And generally, I have been seeing online and in real life how shops have denied Asian people access to their stores, denied them access to public transportation. People have been spit on and physically assaulted, because people are assuming that it is the Chinese people or generally people from Asia that is causing the pandemic to spread. So that becomes an excuse to behave like insane people. I guess you can sort of see how this ties into ecofascism, because ecofascism revolves around the sentiment or the notion that a demise of a numerous amount of people from an overpopulated population will decrease climate change, environmental issues and pollution, which is not at all the case. Now, I'm not saying that if you have ever thought or agreed with the well, we gotta solve this overpopulation issue somehow, ? I'm not saying that you're a bad person for thinking this or for agreeing with this. It simply often just means that we do not have all the pieces in the puzzle in order to thoroughly understand why pollution is as bad as it is and why overpopulation and the decrease of overpopulation will not solve that issue. The mindset that more people equals more pollution and therefore less people equals less pollution taps into the eco-fascist mindset, because it pushes forward the false notion that people who are responsible for climate change are people in poverty, people from indigenous communities, immigrants, refugees, people native to the Middle East and Asia, as well as minority groups from the West. And this is, yeah, you guessed it, very unflattering white supremacy. People only say stuff like, maybe COVID-19 is a good idea because we are overpopulated, when the majority of people who are suffering the deaths from this pandemic are people not related to you, or people that does not look like you. Here's something that is important to understand about climate change, overpopulation and death. It is a mere 1% of the global population that are responsible for the majority of global pollution. That's a lot of peace right there. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. but it is a mere 1% and the goods consumed by that 1% that is responsible for the majority of the pollution that exists today. It is that 1% that have the opportunity to overconsume, to choose to fly frequently, to buy new houses, to buy luxury products, to buy the newest electronic devices, to overconsume stuff like clothes and big steaks. And yeah, you get it. The resource use, construction, production, distribution, and transportation of these products does not fall on the people employed by the industries. It falls on the consumers that support that industry. The people who are most responsible for global pollution are the people who support fast fashion and factory farming and enjoy the products from these industries in the safety of their own homes. I and many other people are in the fortunate position where we fall into that category of people that have that option, but that's not because we earned it. That is, for the most part, on race. And do you know who the most exposed people are during a global pandemic or a natural catastrophe? It is not the same people, that is for darn certain. The people responsible for global pollution and the people that suffer the consequences of a global pollution are two vastly different demographics. The people who suffer the greatest losses from COVID-19 are also not the same 1%. It's the people who are homeless. It's the people who do not have the option to pay for medical bills. It's people of color. It was reported in the US that people from Hispanic and African American communities were much less likely to receive proper medical attention and proper medical care, that people of color are generally taken less seriously when they come into hospitals and given less medication because it's generally assumed that these people have higher tolerances for pain, and that is why they often suffer greater losses. That's why they are more likely to die than white people. It's not on the financial average of these demographics, it's on the presumed capabilities of them. Very different things. And why exactly are we assuming that climate change will be any different? The people who will suffer the most from temperature rises, ocean pollution, from droughts and from other natural catastrophes caused as results of natural phenomena and global climate change and pollution, are we assuming that that is going to be the same people who are responsible for that happening in the first place? Or is it going to be the same minority groups? Is it going to be the same exposed demographics? It is, yeah! The idea that overpopulation and the pollution caused by overpopulation can be solved through natural casualties and casualties in pandemics and natural catastrophes sort of tap into the idea that every person on the planet has the same carbon footprint, which is not at all the case. No one has to die to save the world. We just have to change. And if you're able to make a choice between pork chops or lentils, fast fashion or secondhand, vacation on Bali or locally, then it is up to you and on a greater scale the group of consumers in which you belong to make that change. But do you know why so many people, and not just people, politicians, governments, institutions, media, resolve to the idea that it is people of color, it is immigrants, it is refugees, it is people from Asia that is responsible for climate change and for global pollution? Well, because if that was true, that would mean that they themselves would not have any responsibility, and therefore it would be up to other people to fix it. If you've been watching this on your laptop or reading this while you have checked your phone maybe a couple of times because I'm not that interesting, maybe you've also had your TV being muted in the background, if that is a situation that seems recognizable to you, then it is up to you to start to make changes and to be an active part in the solution. The least we can do is not insinuate that other people's deaths would fix a problem we helped create. There's also another notion I really want to address really quickly, and that's the Chinese are getting wealthier and wealthier, and that's causing climate change. We cannot be any more wealthy people. Now, I don't want to claim that I know any more about finance or economics or money or math than the next person. I am an English major, hello. But this is what a quick afternoon research told me. The average North American wealth per adult is $69,000. The average European wealth per adult is $20,000. The average Chinese wealth per person is $24,000. The average Latin American wealth per adult is $4.9 thousand. The average Asia Pacific is $4,000. In India it's $3,000. In Africa it's $1.2,000. and the general global average wealth per adult is $7,000. Yes, some people in non-Western countries are gaining more wealth, but those who gain this wealth will most likely enjoy some of the same privileges of not dying as rich people from the West. However, increasing wealth amongst some people from China can in no way, shape or form excuse the sentiment that we could do with less Chinese people. At all, no. So let's continue this train of thought and say, what if we killed all the rich people in the world? But first of all, why are we trying to kill people off? Again, we don't need people to die to solve this issue. We need to change. And here's why killing the rich people, or maybe eating? I don't know, I didn't have anything to do with that. I don't know what you're talking about, it's fine. Because I guess if all rich people went away, disappeared, pollution would probably decrease, but not for a very long time, because the thing is that would always be, as long as we have the mindset that we have, the values that we have, there would be a new generation of rich people ready to take their place. I am sure, myself included, I guess it's a very human thing to think that if we had more resources, if I had more financial resources, would I consume goods in a different way? Would I consume things differently? Would I buy other things? So the solution is not removing the symptom. The solution is finding a new way of thinking. What constitutes a good life? What constitutes wealth and richness? We need for that to change. So it's not necessarily the rich people that is the problem. It is how rich people spend money and how rich people made money. Yeah, Jeff, I'm talking to you because no one becomes a trillionaire without taking advantage of people. Just say it. So now we're back to where this argument began. We have to take responsibility for our consumption of goods. We cannot kill people off and then expect the problems to go away. That is an intensely uninformed and actually kind of childish way of looking at it. Something that really, really frustrates me, something that is intensely infuriating to me, is when a person who has plenty of wealth, who's living comfortably, who's not really thinking about money, who's not thinking about consumption, who's not thinking about the goods that they consume, who's just living their life and enjoying it in every possible way, shape or form, are saying that, are admitting that if more people lived the way that they did, that would be the problem. It is sadly not an uncommon mindset to have, and this is where our job becomes really, really important. Because when people push forward the idea that removing the others, the people of color, the foreigners, the uncivilized, I'm so mad, removing these people for the collective good would solve global pollution, I'm not buying it. So this was a lot. Thank you so much for listening, you guys. Again, I really, really encourage you to look at some of the information that I have linked down below. There's also sources for everything I've said here if you want to check it out yourself. I'm in that position where I really want to speak up. I really want to do something. I want to talk to people about this. And I think a really good way of doing that is by making a video, reaching my audience, getting you guys involved. Again, I would much, much, much love if you went and watched and read some of the research that I have here in the description. I'm really, really scared of drowning out voices from people of color, and I don't want to do that, which is why I've left tons of links in the description, and you can follow me on Instagram for daily updates and daily recommendations as well. I hope that you guys have an amazing day, and I hope you stay safe, and I hope that you use your voice as well to talk to people in your community, your friends and your family. See you guys next time, and have a great one. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green, zero-waste content, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!